We've been asking you to suggest topics we can investigate. And this week, one email caught my eye. This viewer says he's an avid swimmer, but he's increasingly worried about the cleanliness and hygiene of our swimming pools. He says people who jump straight into the pool without showering may risk contaminating the water, leading to bacteria buildup, which can cause skin and eye irritants. This got me wondering about how clean our public pools are. So in this episode, I go beneath the surface to find out what's lurking in our pools. In 2019, there were over 6.5 million visits to our public swimming pools. That was before the novel coronavirus pandemic hit us. Today, despite visitor limits, pool visitorship numbers have climbed slowly back up to 60% of monthly visitor capacity. I want to know what is currently being done to clean our pools. So I've arranged to meet Jonas Su. He has been maintaining pools for over 5 years.
There's a few steps. First step will be testing the chlorine and the pH of the water with this kit. Let me show you. Okay, first we will get some water sample from the deeper part of the water. Next, I will flick off the excess water to the marking, and then I will add in the solution.
The yellow solution Jonas adds into the pool water sample measures the chlorine levels in the pool, while the red liquid is to measure the pH.
For the NEA standard, for chlorine it will have to be 1.0 to 3 in between to be ideal, and then for pH is 7.2 to about 7.8.
Is there any reason why those levels are chosen?
It's a safe level for us to be swimming in. Too little chlorine, you will encourage algae to form. Too much chlorine, of course, you will feel the itch and uncomfort for our skin.
A shake of the test kit reveals the results for this pool.
We'll look at the color. For chlorine level, it's about 1.5, and then for the pH is around between 7.2 to 7.6. So this pool is having a very good reading.
So the pool is actually quite clean?
Yes, it's actually very good for swimming, very ideal. We will still add chlorine at the end of our servicing.
So why do you still need to add more chlorine later on if this is already ideal?
Okay, we add chlorine because for the next few days we will not be coming. So the chlorine level actually will drop. So by adding a little bit more, probably it will shoot up to about 2, still within the ideal, but it will last for the few days before we come and clean again.
So how often do you have to do this?
In the case of a public pool, 3 times, 5 times, or even the whole week they are doing it.
The laborious pool cleaning process also includes scooping up debris and vacuuming the bottom of the pool before adding chlorine as the final step. Chlorine acts as the main disinfectant for the pool. Chlorine was first discovered in 1774. Initially, it was used as a bleaching agent for clothing. But by 1847, chlorine was used in hospitals as a germicide. By 1903, it was found to be an effective disinfectant in swimming pools, where it has continued to be used for 120 years. These days, chlorine continues to be used in Singapore's 20 public pools that are currently in operation. Because of COVID-19, there are additional measures to minimize contamination. You must book a slot to use a public pool and limit your swim to 60 minutes. No exceptions. With all these measures in place, our pools should be safe, right? Well, to find out, I'm fanning across Singapore. I'm going to sample the waters in 10 of our public swimming pools to see just how clean our pools really are. These samples will be brought to this lab, where they will be analyzed by Tan Fuan Piang and his team. They've been sampling Singapore's pool water for over 15 years. Okay, Piang, I've got all my pool water samples in. So what are we testing for?
So we're going to test a few parameters. We're going to test pH because if there's an extreme high or low pH, it will cause irritation to the skin or any body parts that actually contact with the water. Followed by appearance, the odor, the color as well as the stability of the water. As you know, that people do not want to like swim in a swimming pool which is smelly or there's cloudy. They will prefer those clear, odor-free swimming pool. Next, we'll be testing on the bacteria.
What kind of bacteria are we looking out for?
We are looking at those fecal bacteria, which is E. coli and the total coliform. Last but not least will be the ammonia. Ammonia mainly is come from human. Okay, can be from our sweat, urine, or even those like sunscreen, lotion, or cosmetic that's used.
It will take a week before the results are out. And I'll find out how clean my next pool dip would be.
For fecal contamination, there are some coliform count.
I'm sampling public pool water from across the island, looking for any indicators that suggest that our pools are unclean, including dangerous bacteria such as E. coli and ammonia, which usually comes from pee. It's been a week since I've sent the samples for testing. The results are in.
Piang, what do the results tell us?
Okay, from the results, we start with pH first. The guideline specified is 7.2 to 7.8. Okay, most of them actually meet the specification, except for maybe from Yishun, Amokyo, Queenstown, Jalan Besar, and Tampines. It doesn't meet the specification of between 7.2 to 7.8. They are slightly higher in terms of pH level, but it's not a concern.
Of the 10 samples taken, 5 samples had a pH higher than the range of 7.8. But because they are only slightly higher than the given range, they are still considered to be safe.
Any pH that is above 9, okay, it will cause some skin irritations. So next we look at the appearance. So for all, actually it's clear and colorless, which is meet the specification of the NEA guidelines. So followed by the odor. So the odor for all the swimming pool sample actually meet the specifications. Then the index parameter we look at will be the bacteria. So for this, the E. coli and the total coliform count actually is the indicator for any fecal contamination within the pool. All meet within the spec, except there are some colony count for Yishun and Ang Mo Kio pools. They have a count of 6, but according to the regulation, they are within 200 colony count per mil.
So if it's a 200 colony count, then it's considered unhygienic.
Considered high unhygienic and actually fill the specification set by the NEA.
Okay, so these are 6, so it's still quite safe. Is that
It's still
is that
quite
safe to say?
safe, yes.
What about ammonia?
The sources of ammonia mainly is from human. It can be from our sweat and urine. Lastly would be like those sunscreen lotions or cosmetics. For ammonia content, most of them actually with no detection except for Bedok swimming pool, which has 0.014 milligram per liter, which is very minute. Okay, so there's two possible reasons for this. One is that the amount of ammonia within the pool is very, very low, okay, which is not impossible to detect. Secondly is that ammonia actually react very fast with the chlorine inside the water to form chloramine.
So while we might think that for the most part our pools are clean with no ammonia in it, the ammonia could have already reacted with chlorine to create a substance called chloramine. I want to know the consequences of having chloramine in our pools. So I'm meeting Professor Shane Snyder, who has been studying water quality and water safety for over 20 years. He's going to explain exactly what happens when chlorine reacts with our pee and sweat to form chloramines.
Prof, I tested some pool water and I found that, there was ammonia in it. But I thought that chlorine was supposed to clear all the ammonia.
So ammonia enters swimming pools from our body. When we're sweating and some people urine in the pool, the chlorine actually will begin to react with that ammonia. In fact, I have something here. This shows you a little bit about how this works. We have ammonia here, and then the chlorine, which is called hypochlorite, and then it reacts to form chloramine. And as we add more ammonia, it can form different forms of chloramine, a dichloramine or a trichloramine. So when you get in the pool and you smell that kind of heavy chlorine smell, it's usually this one, trichloramine.
So the odor I get from the pool is actually the chloramine and not the chlorine.
To some extent. So when you smell a very heavy smell of chlorine, it often can be the trichloramine, which is a byproduct and not the chloramine we really want.
So is chloramine more dangerous than chlorine?
Well, I don't think the chloramine necessarily is more dangerous, but it's a nuisance. So as the chlorine forms chloramine, there's less chlorine there. So we have to top up and add more chlorine to keep the level safe. The way to get rid of chloramines is to add a lot of chlorine. So if we don't practice good hygiene, the amount of chlorine in a swimming pool will drop quickly and make it less safe.
So if I want to get this right, the chlorine reacts with the ammonia to form chloramine?
Yeah, you have it exactly right. So that demand that is happening to the chlorine from ammonia is coming from us, from all of us that are in that pool. And the more hygiene we have, the less ammonia there'll be and the cleaner the pool will stay. So having proper hygiene actually minimizes the amount of chlorine we add and subsequently less byproducts that are formed. So I always advocate for showering before we go in the pool. But also, of course, go to the appropriate place when we need to use the toilet. The cleaner we can be and the better hygiene we can do, the cleaner the pool will be and the less amount of chemicals we have to add.
Now I don't know about you, but I sometimes notice a strong smell of chlorine coming from the pool. Now I always thought it's because the pool was recently cleaned, right? But I just found out it's from a compound called chloramine. Now chloramine is formed when ammonia from our sweat and urine react with chlorine.
I want to know if Singaporeans are aware of what happens when they don't practice proper hygiene. So I'm hitting the streets to find out.
Do you guys swim?
Yes, yes, we do.
Do you guys shower before you go into the pool?
He, I think, maybe does not.
Arvin, do you shower before you go into the pool? No, why not? You don't know?
After swimming, I will go to shower.
Before?
Before, maybe no.
Oh, why is that?
Because I think I'm clean already. Every morning I will take a bath.
Do you shower before you go into a pool?
Not really.
Why do you not shower before you jump into a pool?
I think it's normal because I don't feel so hot. Like only after I swim and I think I'm a bit dirty, then I'll go shower.
Have you ever peed in the pool yourself?
Yeah, sometimes.
Actually, since you teach swimming, have you encountered a lot of people peeing in the pool before?
Pee in the pool? Surely will have lah, but we can't see lah.
So what if I told you, right, when people sweat or they pee in the pool, the ammonium that is released actually reacts with the chlorine, and then it forms chloramine, which is another byproduct. So basically what happens when we form chloramine is that the chlorine levels start going down in the pool.
Okay.
If there's less chlorine in the pool, it means
You can't disinfect.
it can't disinfect, so your pool effectively will get.
Dirty.
So how do you feel now that I've told you that?
I feel guilty
Guilty of
peeing in a pool
peeing in the pool.
and not showering before.
So how do you feel knowing that you should shower before you jump into a pool?
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure whether I'm going to follow it strictly because the thing is like the slots up, 50 minutes now.
Oh.
Right? You book your slot, right? So, there's of course the additional effort of showering.
I'm quite surprised at the number of people who think that it's okay not to shower before you enter a pool. And when it comes to peeing in the pool, well, someone always knows someone who does it. A lot of people think that chlorine is meant to rid the pool of the pee or sweat that people bring into it. But the opposite happens. The ammonia from the pee and sweat reduces the effect the chlorine has on the pool, making it less clean.
But I'm about to find out that chloramine does more than just reduce the effect of chlorine in our pools.
You can still pick up an infection that can potentially worsen with time.
Our pools contain a very diluted amount of chlorine, which is meant to protect us against bacteria and viruses which can enter the pool. But when we don't wash ourselves before entering the pool, or if we pee in pools, the chlorine reacts with our sweat and pee to form chloramines. And apparently, chloramine does more than just reduce the effectiveness of chlorine in our pools. It can also have a more direct effect on us. So I've arranged to meet Dr. Lucinda Tan from the National Skin Centre. As a dermatologist, she handles 2 to 3 patients a month due to conditions related to swimming.
So chloramines, they irritate and dry the skin, and that causes the problem. They strip away the skin's natural oils, and this affects the skin's protective barrier. This allows dust, bacteria, allergens to enter and cause irritation. A normal person with normal skin may get away with that, no issues. A patient with eczema or very dry skin, the skin dries up completely. What happens is that it becomes very itchy. The patients end up scratching really badly. With the scratching, then you break a lot of the skin barrier and you allow a lot of germs to enter, and then you can get bad infections, and this is a vicious cycle.
Aside from skin, does it irritate anything else?
So all parts of the body exposed can be affected. So you can get hair issues, dry hair. You can get eye problems, so dry, irritated eyes, red eyes, itchy eyes. Sometimes the people may end up drinking a little bit more of the swimming pool water. They can get dry and itchy throat as well from that. If your immune system is compromised for whatever reasons, and a small cut and whatnot, you can still pick up an infection that can potentially worsen with time.
Could you take me through what kind of hygiene I should practice at a pool to avoid these kind of irritations?
So before the swim, when you get to the pool, you want to rinse, do a quick rinse to get rid of the dirt, and then you apply liberal, good moisturizers, preferably waterproof, and a sunblock if needed to prevent sun damage. So for moisturizers wise, there are 2 broad groups of moisturizing. One group is to repair the skin. They have the building blocks of the skin, and when you apply it, it tends to repair the skin. The other broad group of moisturizers are the barrier ones, where they don't aim to repair the skin, but they aim to cover up almost like a carpet. Nothing goes in, nothing goes out, and that maintains moisture as well. So it depends on a patient's preference and the skin conditions. Generally, you want something slightly oilier because you want the moisturizer to last for the duration of the swim in the pool. So an oily based one would help. The ones that are more water resistant would help as well.
You mentioned using moisturizer and sunscreen before you go into the pool. Would that affect the chemicals in the pool?
So if you use sunblock, moisturizers and whatnot, when you go in, it also undergoes the reaction and hence forming the chloramines as well. So you're right, it does aid in that process in a little bit. But between the two, of course, if you can protect the skin a little bit more, it would help buffer the irritation that you can get from chloramines after that. When you come out of the pool, preferably immediately rinse off with water to get rid of all the chlorine. If possible, use a gentle cleanser as well to aid in the more complete removal.
Which group of people are more susceptible to these kind of skin irritations?
Some kids may be a bit more at risk of dry, irritating skin versus the adults.
It's good to know that we can take simple steps to minimize any irritations we can get from swimming pools. But if kids are more sensitive to pool water, I want to know what's being done to keep them safe.
There are now nearly 200 kids' swim schools across Singapore. Jay Tan has been managing this baby pool for over 7 years. And at least 100 babies and toddlers swim in his pool daily, which means he's all too familiar with pee in the pool. But he claims technology can help manage the impact of chloramine.
It starts from the swimming pool water. It's salted. Salt is sodium chloride. So when this salt water went through the electrolysis system, it breaks down the salt, the Na and Cl into just Cl. Cl means chlorine, and chlorine comes back to the water. So after the chlorine reacts to the bacteria or germs, it becomes a chlorine byproduct. It will go back to the system again, go through the UV system, and to break it down into chlorine again, and it comes back to the swimming pool. So these systems will just run perpetually, and we don't really have to change the swimming pool water.
Rather than pouring chlorine directly into pools, which is known as dosing, Jay opts to use electricity to break down table salt into one of its components, chlorine. The system is also automated, so whenever there's a drop in chlorine level because of chloramine, the chlorine is reintroduced via the computerized system, meaning there is always enough chlorine to keep the pool safe and clean.
Before that, we do manual dosing, where you just have to purchase the chemical. So for manual dosing or any kind of slow doser, you tend to have a spike in chlorine when you
dose it, it takes a while for it to dilute and react. So you have a very inconsistent chlorine level. But for this electrolysis system, it keeps the chlorine healthy throughout. And with the computer system that take care of it behind, it will automatically adjust the amount of chlorine to generate.
But it also sounds like it could be expensive. So approximately what kind of figures are we talking about for a system like this?
It's 5-figure.
Wow!
It's definitely more expensive than manual dosing, where you just have to purchase the chemical. For us, we have to purchase the salt as well as invest into the system.
I can understand why such a system would be used in kids' pools, because kids would tend to urinate or defecate more in them.
So what's in our pools? Well, primarily chlorine and chloramine, which is the cause of body irritation we experience after swimming in a pool. So before we jump in, woo! Rinse off, leave the pool if nature calls, and if you're still concerned, you can get a test kit like this online which can give you the pH and chlorine levels of the pool on the spot before you jump in. All good.